Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You're 21 years old. You grew up in Manila watching grainy YouTube videos of two American sisters absolutely dominating the tennis world. You had their posters. You knew their statistics. You dreamed about what it would feel like to even stand in the same building as them, let alone share a court with one of them. And then one morning you wake up, check your phone, and find out that not only are you about to play doubles with one of those sisters at a professional WTA tournament, but there's a very real chance you could walk out onto the grass at Wimbledon and face the other one in a match that the entire planet will be watching. That is not a movie plot. That is the actual life of Alex Ela in the summer of 2026. And if you think you already know this story, I promise you, you don't. Because the version that everyone expected, the version that fans had been dreaming about for months, the version that felt so perfect it almost seemed scripted, that version never actually happened. What happened instead was something messier, more complicated, more human, and in a lot of ways, far more beautiful. Let's back up, because to understand the magnitude of what was unfolding, you need to feel the weight of everything that had already happened in the weeks leading up to this moment. Alex Ela had been on a run that nobody in Philippine sports history had ever managed. The 21-year-old from Manila had won her first career grass court title in Birmingham at the start of June. Then she had walked into the WTA 500 Berlin Open as a wild card, with almost no one giving her a realistic shot, and proceeded to beat world number 2 Elena Rybakina and world number 8 Alina Svitolina back-to-back. In the same tournament. As a wild card, the tennis world sat up straight. Her ranking jumped from 35 to 30. And then, when world number 9 Victoria Mboko withdrew from Wimbledon with a knee injury, Eala moved one more spot up the seeding list and became the 29th seed. The first Filipino in the entire Open era to earn a singles seed at a Grand Slam. The Philippines didn't just celebrate. It erupted. And in the middle of all of that, quietly tucked behind the headlines about her ranking and her historic seeding, another story had been developing. A story that nobody had fully seen coming. It started with Serena Williams. In early 2026, Serena had announced something that sent electricity through the tennis world. She was coming back. Nearly 4 years after walking away from the sport following the 2022 US Open, the 23-time Grand Slam champion was returning to professional tennis. And she wasn't easing herself in quietly. She was going straight for Wimbledon, the place where legends are made and unmade, the place where she had won 7 singles titles, the place that was essentially her second home. The moment the announcement landed, one question dominated every tennis conversation on the planet. Who was going to partner with Serena in doubles? She had played doubles at Queen's Club with 19-year-old Victoria Mboko. She had teamed up with Karolina Muchova in Berlin. But Wimbledon was different. Wimbledon was the place where Serena and her sister Venus had won 6 doubles titles together. 6. The idea that they might reunite there, on that grass, at that tournament, was almost too much to process. And when it was confirmed, when the announcement dropped that Serena and Venus Williams would indeed play doubles together at Wimbledon for the first time since their 2016 title, the internet did what the internet does. It lost its mind completely. But that's where the story takes its first unexpected turn. Because before any of that Wimbledon reunion could happen, Venus had a prior commitment. She had already agreed to play doubles the week before Wimbledon, at the Bad Homburg Open in Germany. And her partner for that tournament wasn't her sister. It was Alex Ela. Let that land for a moment. The young Filipina who had just made history as the first Filipino Grand Slam seed was going to share a court with Venus Williams, one of the most accomplished athletes in the history of women's sports, a 7-time Grand Slam singles champion and a 14-time major doubles winner. A woman who had won Wimbledon doubles titles in 4 different decades. And Eala wasn't just going to stand on the same court as her. She was going to be her partner. When the pairing was announced, reactions were all over the place. There was genuine excitement from fans who saw it as the most beautiful kind of cross-generational moment, youth and legend, future and history, sharing a baseline. But there was also confusion, and some of it was pointed. Why would Venus choose to spend the week before the Wimbledon reunion playing doubles with someone else? Was this a preparation strategy? Was she trying to stay sharp on grass before linking back up with Serena? Was there something more complicated going on between the sisters that nobody was talking about? The speculation spiraled fast, the way it always does when the Williams family is involved, because people have been endlessly fascinated by them for almost 3 decades. But the truth, as it often is, was both simpler and more interesting than the theories. Venus was a professional. She was returning to competition after a significant absence, and she needed match time on grass. Bad Homburg gave her that. Eala gave her an energetic, motivated partner who would push the pace and bring exactly the kind of competitive fire you want going into a Grand Slam. It made sense. And Eala, for her part, had no confusion about what this meant for her. She posted about it on social media in a way that said everything you needed to know about where her head was at. She wrote that never in her wildest dreams would she have had the privilege of competing alongside Venus Williams on a tennis court. That she was immensely grateful to learn from her. Those weren't the words of someone performing for the cameras. That was a 21-year-old kid from Manila being completely honest about the fact that she was living inside something that felt impossible. June 24, 2026. The day finally arrived. Eala and Venus Williams walked out onto the Bad Homburg court together for the first time as a doubles team. The crowd was electric. There was something almost surreal about watching them warm up side by side, the young Filipina in the early chapters of what everyone hoped would be a long career, and the American legend who had already written more chapters than most players could dream of. From the very first point, there was something there. They found a rhythm quickly, which is not a given in doubles, especially in a pairing that had little time to practice together. They raced out to a 4-0 lead in the opening set and never let their opponents, Alexandra Osborne and Catherine Harrison, find a foothold. The first set went 6-3 in about 30 minutes. The second was tighter, more contested, but Eala and Venus held their nerve when it mattered, converting a crucial break point late in the set to close out the match 6-4. 1 hour and 10 minutes. First round done. The crowd applauded warmly, and Eala looked like someone who had just confirmed to herself that she absolutely belonged on this stage, next to this person, in this moment. Online, the reaction was immediate and warm. Clips circulated of the two of them working points together, Venus commanding the net, Eala driving from the baseline with that clean, compact groundstroke game she had developed over years at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. Fans called it a moment in tennis that needed to be preserved. And for one night, it really did feel like something rare and unrepeatable was happening at a small grass tournament in Western Germany. Then came the quarterfinals. And with them, a reality check of the most professional kind. Eala and Venus were drawn against the second-seeded pair of Teresa Mihalkova and Olivia Nichols. This was not a soft draw. The British-Slovak combination had just won the doubles crown at Queen's Club the week before. They had been playing together for 9 consecutive tournaments. They were in the kind of groove that takes months to build and weeks of shared match time to maintain. Eala and Venus had won exactly one match together. The first set started with promise. Eala and Venus got to 3-2, and for a brief stretch it looked like the chemistry from the first round was still intact. Then Mihalkova and Nichols found another gear. 4 straight games. First set gone, 6-3. The second set was closer in the early stages. Eala and Venus managed to cut a 2-0 deficit back to 2-1, which was a real moment of fight, because the easiest thing in the world when you're down in the second set of a quarterfinal is to let the energy drain out of you. They didn't do that. But Mihalkova and Nichols were simply too good, too dialed in, too comfortable with each other. They pushed ahead to 5-1 and closed it out 6-2. Match over. 1 hour and 20 minutes. The dream pairing had reached its end. And here is the part that matters most, the part that doesn't show up in the scoreline or the match statistics. After the loss, neither Eala nor Venus spent a second dwelling on the defeat publicly. Venus posted on her Instagram story and called it the best ride, the best tournament, the best partner. 3 short phrases from someone who has won more titles and played more memorable matches than almost anyone alive. 3 short phrases that meant, if you read between the lines, that the experience itself had been worth far more than the result. Eala shared the post and added that she was so grateful for the experience. Their opponents, for their own part, were visibly moved by having been on the same court as Venus. Nichols said it was a huge honor. Mihalkova said that to play against Venus, or possibly against Serena at Wimbledon, was a once-in-a-lifetime feeling. Think about that for a second. The winners of the match were the ones talking about the privilege of having been there. That tells you something about the gravitational pull of what had just happened at Bad Homburg. But the week wasn't just about doubles, and the story wasn't finished. Not by a long way. Because while Eala was absorbing the lessons of her partnership with Venus and preparing mentally for the biggest tournament of her career, The Wimbledon draw was being finalized. And when it dropped on June 26th, the tennis world experienced the kind of collective sharp intake of breath that happens maybe once or twice a year. Eala was drawn against Mexico's Renata Zarazua in the first round. A name she knew. A player she had faced before, back in a USA ITF event in 2024, where Zarazua had rallied from a set down to beat her. Unfinished business, then, on the biggest grass court stage in the world. But the first round matchup, as significant as it felt, was almost immediately overshadowed by what was sitting in the second round section of the draw. Serena Williams had been placed in the same quarter of the draw as Eala. Serena, making her Wimbledon singles return after nearly 4 years away, was drawn against Australian world number 53 Maya Joint in the first round. A winnable match for a player of Serena's caliber, even accounting for the rust of 4 years off the tour. And if Serena came through that match, as most people expected she would face the 29th seed in the second round. The 29th seed being Alex Ela of the Philippines. The tennis world didn't just react. It combusted. Here was the matchup that fans had been fantasizing about since the moment Eala's ranking started climbing in the spring. A 44-year-old legend returning to the sport after years away. A 21-year-old rising star who had just become the first Filipino seed in Grand Slam history. The greatest of all time against someone who might, just might, be part of the future. On the grass of Wimbledon. In the second round. The symbolism was almost too heavy to carry. And the layers of it kept building the more you thought about it. Just days before this draw was announced, Eala had been on the same court as Venus Williams in Bad Homburg. She had learned from her, competed alongside her, won with her, and lost with her. She had felt what it was like to be in the orbit of that kind of greatness up close. And now she was looking at the possibility of stepping onto center court at the All England Club and facing Serena Williams as an opponent. Not a partner. Not an idol to admire from a distance. An opponent. The person across the net. The older sister of the woman she had just called the best partner and a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The layers of connection between these three people, Eala, Venus, Serena, were becoming almost impossible to fully map. And the Williams sisters added yet another dimension to the week when it was confirmed they would receive a wild card to compete together in the women's doubles. Serena and Venus at Wimbledon, in doubles, for the first time since they won the title there in 2016. Their 14th Grand Slam doubles title together, and 6 of those had come on this grass. The reunion that fans had been waiting for. The moment that felt like a bookend to one of the greatest chapters in the history of the sport. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, watching and processing and preparing, was Alex Ela. A young woman who had grown up watching the Williams sisters the same way most of us did, through screens, through highlights, through those moments where you witness something so dominant and so complete that it stops feeling like sport and starts feeling like art. She had idolized them. She had studied them. She had dreamed about them. And now she was living inside a story that connected her to both of them in ways that nobody could have scripted. The week that began with her and Venus winning their first round in Bad Homburg had led, in the space of a few days, to a potential second-round collision with Serena at Wimbledon. The symmetry of it was enough to make you sit back and just appreciate the strangeness and beauty of professional sport and the paths it creates for people. But here is what I want to make sure doesn't get lost in all the drama and the history and the matchup speculation. Because there's a tendency in these moments to turn a real person's journey into a narrative device, to make someone's life the backdrop for a bigger story. And Alex Ela deserves better than that. What she had done over the past month was genuinely extraordinary on its own terms, independent of whoever she might face across the net. She had won a grass court title in Birmingham. She had beaten 2 top 10 players in the same week in Berlin. She had earned a historic seeding. She had banked meaningful prize money. She had spent a week learning from one of the greatest doubles players the sport has ever seen. She had done all of this at 21 years old, while carrying the weight of being the first Filipino player to ever reach this particular ceiling, while representing a nation of 115 million people who were watching her every match with a level of collective investment that most professional athletes never experience in their entire careers. The pressure she had been playing under was real and enormous, and she had handled it with a composure that spoke to everything the Rafa Nadal Academy had built into her over the years of her development. And now she was at Wimbledon. Her draw gave her a realistic path. Her seeding protected her from the top 32 players in the opening rounds. Her first-round opponent was beatable, even with the history between them. And beyond that was the possibility of Serena Williams, the greatest of all time, coming back after years away, on the grass where she had built so much of her legacy. If Eala got through Zaragoza, she would walk out for a potential second-round match knowing that every camera at the All England Club, every broadcast feed on the planet, would be pointing at that court. She would know that her country would be watching at hours of the morning that should be reserved for sleep. She would know that the tennis world would be watching not just to see the score, but to see what she was made of when tested at the highest possible level. And that is actually the question that makes this story so compelling. Not whether Eala could beat Serena. That would be asking for something.